So this is an introduction to intellectual property rights. So the first thing is about the first slide talks about the definition of IP and comparison with physical property. So I would prefer to go through the slide and then later on come back in the live video mode to interact with you on the question and answer session, and in between also if you have anything to talk. So when I say intellectual property as you see the definition there, it refers to the creation of the human mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs and symbols, names, images used in commerce. So what does this mean? Anything which is created by a human mind is an intellectual property. So as you know, the property can be classified into physical property and intellectual property. There may be several property lawyers who are handling day in, day out property cases, all those issues related to property, property transfers, property registrations, all those adverse possession, so many things you must be handling day in, day out. That's with regard to the physical property, whether it's a immovable property or a movable property with respect to that. When we talk about intellectual property, we have other synonyms to it also, like tangible property and intangible property. So what you see as a physical property is a tangible property, and intellectual property is the creation of the human mind, which is an intangible property. Or you can also call it as a corporeal and incorporeal property. So as we said that intellectual property is 100% creation of a human mind, and physical property includes physical resources which has got physical existence. Now, when I say this, I'll say it with an example. Let's say two persons walking across to a river, say a river bank. One goes with a fishing rod, the other one goes with a pen and a writing pad. Both of them sit on the river bank. The one person puts the fishing rod into the water and he catches a fish. What happens to the fish? It is a physical property, right? So the physical property, he is the owner of the physical property. What he can do, he has all the rights over the physical property, and he can sell it to anybody he wants. Similarly, the other person who came with a pen and pad to the river bank, he sits there and starts writing a poem, a nice poem. And when he writes a poem, it comes out very nicely. He is sitting in a natural environment. His own creativity is at work. His mind is creating that thing. That is also property. The poem gets created by his own ideas. Therefore, this can be passed on as a property. It is a creation of a human mind. So, there is a physical labor and a mental labor. That is where the difference between the physical property and the intellectual property comes into picture. So I hope with this example you would have understood the physical property is also a creation by a human labor, and intellectual property is also a creation by human mind. In case of physical property, it can be both private and public in nature. So something like you have a public park, public playground, etc. It belongs to the government. So some of the properties are public, and some buildings which is owned by the government and things like that. Whereas in case of an intellectual property, it is purely private in nature. In the sense, it belongs to either a natural person or a legal person, either companies or institutions or societies, kind of a thing. So they own the intellectual property. Physical property may be available in limited quantity worldwide. Like you have a limitation on existence on physical property. For example, petroleum. It's a physical property. Only Arab countries or Gulf oil GCC countries which are producing oil. Today the oil prices have gone up. As on date, the petrol price is still increasing world over. So their production, because it cannot, it's a fossil fuel, it cannot exist for on and on and on and on for generation together. There'll be a time when you will run short of this petrol and other things which are coming out of the earth. So that means the physical property may be available in limited quantity worldwide. But no such limitation exists for intellectual property, as it is created with the human mind. Anybody can create a software. Anybody today is a mobile phone world, so you can create an ingenious application using a boy. Even a boy of 18 years old can create a beautiful application which can be a world, you know, world which can become world famous application and which can be created by a human mind. So both physical property and IP and intellectual property, as we talked about in the slide in the last point, can be owned, bought and sold, rented, protected, and infringed upon by others. So legal remedies and damages can be claimed in case of infringement of intellectual property also. See, supposing you have bought a land and you have put a fence and you have put a board that belongs to you. Somebody removes the fence and then moves in. You have a legal remedy to evacuate that person from there. Similarly, in IP also, you have legal remedy for you can hold it, you can license it, you can assign it, as well as protect it from others infringing upon. So let's understand intellectual property rights, the real meaning of it. When we talk about the intellectual property rights real meaning, there is no intellectual property in mere ideas. What I mean by ideas, you may have a fantastic idea, I'll make a foldable television, or I'll make a foldable, or I'll think of making a bike which runs on seawater. It may be only an idea, but the idea has to be expressed in a tangible form in order to get a protection as an intellectual property. So when I said in a tangible form, it has to be in a tangible form, means it has to convert into an invention. So the IP can be in two parts. One is an invention, as I said, the literary and artistic work. I talked about the literary work when the person writes a poem. In this case, you are thinking about a tangible form of expression of the ideas. So if you really make a bike which can run on a salt water and demonstrate it, then you can get it protected in a tangible form. It should be done in a tangible form. Now, we can say intellectual property is a negative right in one way, as it stops others from doing something of which the ownership rests with the IP holder. Whenever you register an IP, you are the owner of the intellectual property, and without your permission, nobody can infringe upon it. They cannot use that property. They cannot use that idea because you conceptualized the ideation taken place. After ideation has taken place, you have conceptualized that idea, and that idea is converted into a product or a process by in a tangible form, and then you have applied for an IP, registered it, and protected it. Now, once it is done, it has got a negative right in the sense that other persons cannot do anything without it, without the owner giving him permission to do so. The owner can give the permission to do so by means of two methods, which comes in everything, whether it is a copyright or trademark or patent. What we call in IPR terms is licensing and assignment. So licensing is something like a lease, where you license it to that person. He will use that brand name, or he will use your original work like your poem or whatever it may be, and then he will poem or anything, and then he will be paying you a royalty for it. That is the meaning of a licensing arrangement. So you can give any number of license to any number of people by region wise. You can say I can give rights to, for example, only Tamil Nadu region. I can give to Andhra region. I can give to Delhi region. Like that, you can have the rights of licensing distributed among many people if you want, or you can have one master license which you give to another person to commercially exploit it all over India or all over the world. For example, I would say that there was one Tamil film script which I had copyrighted for one of the film companies last year, and the script was copyrighted. Afterwards, they wanted the rights to be the Hindi dubbing rights. Like there are some TV channel which run the thing with the English word at the caption at the bottom. So those kind of things, for dubbing rights, we have to make an agreement or contract license agreement and transfer it. So when I said I covered one aspect of it, which is licensing, the other one is assignment. Assignment is, as I said, licensing is something similar to lease, and assignment is something similar to your outright sale. So assign means I have the right and I am giving to, I am X, I got the right of my authorship, maybe a work or an invention. I assign the right to somebody else, and that person starts exploiting it commercially. Now, the positive right of the IP is the right of the owner to exploit commercially the ideas expressed previously, either by himself or through others. That is what it means. That he can, if he has got the commercial capability. Say, for example, an author. He's a poor author. He's only a creator. He writes a novel. He writes a, say, 200 pages novel. He doesn't have the means to, uh, say, publish it. So what will he do? He goes to the publisher, gives his work, publisher takes his work, and he prints the book either in the e-book or in the form of published book, printed books, and he commercially exploits that, and then pays him a royalty for the original author. That is the agreement a publisher will have with an author. An author could be a writer of a novel or writer of a book or writer of a poem or anything. So these are the things which we need to look into it. So IP right has both positive right and negative right. The positive right means is the owner is the person who is entitled, because it is entitled to the owner to enjoy the commercial exploitation. So the commercial exploitation means making use of it commercially. See, where fundamentally you have to understand where does the intellectual property rights come into picture. The intellectual property rights are basically used mainly in trade and commerce. Wherever you are using trade and commerce, and today the trade and commerce requires this intellectual property rights protection very much. It is very much needed in the modern times with so many brands coming up, so many works coming up in YouTube, so many works coming up in chat, this, that. So, so many things are there. So there are digital rights which are to be protected. How do you protect your digital rights? How do you protect your trademark? How do you protect your invention? And these are the questions which plague the even the startup. The startup should have a proper. They may have a great idea and they may brought out a product. If they have not protected it, the idea goes out before protecting it. They lose the game. They cannot make a trade or commerce. So it is easy for anybody to copy or infringe upon an IP rather than creating it on their own. Because creating an IP requires time, effort, and money, enormous amount of money to be plugged in to create an invention. Now let's trace the evolution of IPR. Let us trace the history. So when you look at the tracing of the history, scientific knowledge, we can conclude that normally the scientific knowledge which existed was transformed into a form of property. Like I discussed about the physical property and intellectual property. What do you call the IP? If you want to say, so the scientific knowledge has become a document, it has become, or it has become in a tangible form, either as a literary work or artistic work, or as an invention. It has taken a scientific knowledge has taken a form, a tangible form of property, which becomes an IP, needs to be protected for private individuals and entities like companies and other institutions. Now, what does our constitution, where does our constitution talk about intellectual property right? So everybody will be talking about, okay, constitutional law, where in the constitution there is any mere mention of intellectual property is there or not. So all those who have studied constitution more should understand that there is an Article 51A(h). What it talks about is Article 51A is basically a fundamental duties which each and every citizen has to perform. It's an obligation on each and every citizen to perform. Although it is not enforceable in the court of law, this is a fundamental duty. So the fundamental duty is one of the fundamental duties as mentioned in 51A(h) is to develop scientific temper. The moment I say the scientific temper, it means that you have to have the scientific view of mind and the spirit of inquiry and reform. Means you keep reforming, have the scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform, and keep working on it. One of this, develop the scientific temper, is the creativity or the innovative thing each and every citizen has to think and create for the country. So, Constitution has mentioned it as one of the fundamental duties of every citizen as an obligation. It's not enforceable, but it is making you to think. Now, let me tell you a story. Okay, where does the IP history we can trace in Mahabharata? Can we trace IP, any form of IP in our Mahabharata or Ramayana? I am just looking into the Mahabharata story, where the story of Eklavya with and Dronacharya. So where it talks about the infringement of the rights of the royal family. So which is a form of IP in those days. Like Dronacharya is the guru, and he is teaching all these people, Pandavas and Kauravas and whatever they are teaching. So Arjuna is one of the bow and arrow man who is a well-known person, and his skills are there. Eklavya was a poor boy who wanted to learn from Dronacharya, but according to the rules of the kingdom, Dronacharya, who is the guru or the trainer for the royal family, does not have the right to teach to other people other than the royal family members. That's the rule which existed. So you can call it as that's the negative form of the IP which existed at those points. So whatever skills, like whatever the people use, like Bhavandar or Arjun use panna will, then Gadayadam, then other things, whatever horse riding, whatever skills this person was teaching them, the skills, learning skills, physically teaching skills, survival skills, how to hide in the forest, how to attack, how to counter the enemy, getting into Chakravyuha, those kind of things. He was teaching all the war-related stuff and other things to the royal family members. Now, those kind of things, he is not allowed to teach it to other common citizens of the country, because the kingdom or the kings wanted to protect their property or their kingdom to that extent. So that was the rule which has existed. Now, what is Eklavya done? Eklavya made a statue of Dronacharya and he kept it at his home or wherever the place he was talked about. And he has learned the skill of archery by seeing from a distance and other things. Over a period, he became more experienced and an expert, and even overtaking Arjuna by hearing the sound. But Eklavya had a good intention. Why he wanted to learn archery, if you look at it, he wanted to learn archery for the purpose of saving the deers in the forest, which were always under attack from tiger, panthers, leopards, lions, which was eating the deers. So he wanted to save by killing those animals which are eating these weaker animals. So he was getting into the archery and learning it for protecting the thing. But unfortunately, what happened was, this part of it, once Arjuna comes and confronts Eklavya and he asks, how did you learn this particular thing? He said, I learned it from Dronacharya. Who is your guru? He says, Dronacharya is my guru. Then Arjuna was surprised. He knows the rule. He knows the protection given for the royal family, IP protection given for the royal family. The skill sets are an IP protection. So he said, he went to Dronacharya. He said, what you are doing is very unjust. You have allowed another person, what you are supposed to teach only to the royal family members, you are taught to a poor boy. And he is more skilled than me. You enabled him more skilled than me. Because normally the kings don't want the commoners to overtake them in any of these skills. So if they have overtaken the fighting skills, they could also claim the kingdom. So that's the reason that was a protected kind of a thing. Later on, Dronacharya, you all would have heard that he went to Eklavya and asked what is that. Then he said, who is the guru? He showed the statue of Dronacharya. And Dronacharya says, okay, you are my student. I accept you as my student. But as a guru, you have to give me a Guru Dakshina. When he asked for the Guru Dakshina, you all know, he took off his thumb. When the thumb is gone, you cannot do the infringement anymore. So he cannot do the archery anymore. So that's the punishment given to a infringer of an IP in those days. I'm just taking it as an example of, where we can correlate the IP concept, the concept of IP coming in from the history. So I talked about the constitution. I said first, the scientific knowledge is transformed into a property which needs to be protected for the companies in trade and commerce. Then I said our constitution talks about the development of the scientific temper. Then I am talking about the story of Mahabharata, where Dronacharya and Eklavya, where his thumb was removed and the person was disabled to do that particular thing. That is what we do in copyright. We have a search and seizure procedure where you go search and seize the material which are infringing material and then destroy them. Even in trademark, we have something called as passing off and deceptively similar products. Those things are all, there are actions, remedies available for punishing the infringer. Both there are certain punishments, criminal procedures as well as civil procedures that I will cover in deep when we go into the particular acts. Okay. Now coming to the other history, the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire is nothing but the ancient Roman Empire, which was in Greece. In in the 7th century, they granted monopolies to cooks for 1 year to try out different recipes. Okay. In 1432, the Senate of Venice in Italy enacted a statute to giving exclusive privileges to those inventing machines to speed up silk making. Those days, silk making was an important thing for the Europeans because the silk route was from China. China was exporting the silk, and India also was making some silks as well as spices and condiments which were exported to the European countries. That is why people wanted the East India Company, the French, Dutch, and everybody came into India for trade and commerce. They wanted to basically, the Britishers came into India only for trade and commerce. They did not come to rule us. So basically they were trying to come into that, the Silk Route. So they found that the efficiencies of Chinese silk makers and Indian people are much more than their thing. So the Venice Senate, so they made a new statute saying that those who have inventing machines to speed up silk making. So manually making silk, people must have known how long it takes in a handloom to weave a silk saree, how many days it takes. Same thing, when you put it into a machine, how soon a saree can come out of the machine. So they gave certain exclusive privileges, exclusive rights to them. And they only should make, whoever invented a machine, they can only sell in other people. Other people cannot invent the same machine, and they have to buy from them or something like that. It was going on for years together. So this is just an history part of it. As I introduce the concept of IP, so these are the things which we want to take it forward. Now let me go into why people, you must be asking why I need protection for intellectual property. What is the need for protecting intellectual property? You may say, okay, it is a creation of mind, okay, human thinking, ideas converted into tangible form. What is the necessity for protecting intellectual property? So when I say what is the need for protection of intellectual property, there are two things which will have to come into picture. One is the industrial property, what we call as industrial property, and the other thing is the protection of literary artistic work related to copyrights. So industrial property are protected primarily to stimulate innovation. See, unless you protect it, nobody will invent. See, if I develop a new machine and somebody copies that machine within no time, so what happens? My efforts of putting money, the the infringed fellow will not have put in that much of effort. It is easy for him to take it, re-engineer the product and sell it in the product. It's a duplicate product or fabricated product, seeing the specification of one product. So the creation of new technology for the public use will not come out unless you give a protection to the innovative product for the industrial property. So under this category falls, what are the things which fall under this industrial property? See, the industrial property was first we had in 1883, there was a Paris Convention. In the Paris Convention, they got together and then they said we need to protect the industrial property, which has namely the inventions, industrial designs, trade secrets, and these are the things which they wanted to protect in that. In 1866, the Berne Convention held in, after 3 years later, the Paris Convention. That was convention was held for protection of literary and related to copyrights and artistic creations such as poems, novels, music, painting, cinematographic works, etc. So copyright, as I said, it is also known as author's right. The original author's right is the copyright. So what we need to do is the social purpose is to provide protection to the results of investment and development of new technology. So what happens if you protect it, and you cannot give the protection perpetually. The next slide, I will show you the life of each and every the term of protection which is given by the government or the monarch or somebody for the IP, so that it can be commercially exploited and then move forward. Okay. So as we talk about this, the point of first point to start with was the Paris Convention in 1863, and then followed by the Berne Convention. And then we also had, after the World War II, we had this GATT agreement, GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff between countries. What happened was, after World War II, every country was fighting. Nobody was believing anybody to anybody, but they wanted to have an interaction with each other by means for trade and commerce. How do we go about doing that? So about some 12 countries joined together and they formed a GATT agreement. So that is General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. So the main points were that they have to treat each other as national preference or most preferred nation treatment. So there is some international law coming into picture. So once India becomes a signatory to the international conventions and agreements, then they have to implement it by means of legislation here, modifying the acts and laws to suit that particular commitments made in the international convention. This you can refer in the directive principles of state policy. Article 37 says any conventions and other things which you enter into has to be ratified by the legislation, whether it is a state legislature or our parliament. They have to enact new acts or modify or amend the existing acts by bringing a bill in the parliament and then change the thing according to the agreements, international agreements and commitments made by our nation. Because it is a coexistence in the world. So we have to exist with all the other countries in the world. So we need to do this particular thing. So there is an international law which comes into play in any of these decision making with respect to IPR. Because the most important thing is the national treatment, which is one of the important points of all these agreements. National treatment means when India commits that it will provide a national treatment to the products of other countries, it means that when whatever the facilities or provisions given to an Indian company or Indian individual, the same thing will be given to a foreign national also. For example, a company like a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi for that matter, they are all foreign companies. They come into India, they get a national treatment. In the sense, India treats them like its own company. Similarly, Indian companies, either Tata, Mahindra, or anybody for that matter, goes abroad and sets up, or Infosys, they go and set up an office in America, or the office in Europe, or office in Middle East, anywhere. That government has to treat, it is a reciprocal agreement and arrangement between the world nations to have the commitment to treat them as national treatment. As how you treat our national, the same way we have to treat the other national. That is what it is. Okay. So as I talked about the need, when we talked about it, we have to talk about GATT. I talked about the formation of GATT. It slowly went into formation of WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization, which was created in Geneva in 1970, and then it became a the WIPO became part of United Nations agency in the year 1974. Okay, so it became a specialized agency. WIPO takes care of the intellectual properties like patent, trademark, and the industrial designs right now under the UN wing. The other one is the trade-related aspects of industrial property rights. TRIPS agreement was signed by 162 WTO member countries, effective from 1st January 1995. Okay. Now, in this part of it, where do we come? India signed the TRIPS agreement also, and later on, 3 years later, in 1995, it signed, and later on, 1998, it signed the Paris Convention also. So, So India it's a binding agreement. So India has to give a national treatment to all the IPs and then take forward everything. Now, here I have listed the type of intellectual property like uh, patents, type of intellectual property, the subject matter and term of protection. I think this will give a clear idea of the tables of what all the things we are going to discuss right now. One is, first one is the patents. Patents, the subject matter is invention and the term of protection is 20 years. So once the patent is granted, it is for the period of 20 years, after which it goes to the public. So public, any other people can use the technology, use that process, or take that product and remake that product on their own. It is given to the public. It goes into the public domain. That is what the meaning. The patent protection is only for a period of 20 years for the right holder, patent right holder, to exploit it commercially to the maximum extent possible up to the period of 20 years. Now, copyrights. So what is copyright? Copyright is works of authorship. When I say works of authorship, it is includes everything. Copyright includes everything. It could be a music composition, it could be a broadcaster right, it could be a, uh, as I said, poem, novel, literary work, or artistic work, even a painting. A painting can also be um, copyright. It can also be a music composition, the notational music, or a recorded music as a sound recording. So in music, you have both a notational thing. Why when somebody writes a notes, it can also be copyrighted. If somebody composes music and then plays a sound, the sound recording is also a copyright which can be done, which is normally done in the film industry and other thing. And cinematographic films also has a copyright on its own. So even the sculpture, like stone sculpture or marble sculpture, any sculpture also is a form of copyright. It subsists, copyright subsists in that also. Now, what is the term of protection given for copyright? Is basically life of the author plus 60 years, which means the author during his entire lifetime. If a person, for example, he writes a novel and then he lives up to 80 years, he writes a novel at the age of 70, but at the age of 80, he dies. So what happens is the protection is available and not only up to 80, but 80 plus 60, up to 140 years, that right will be available to the legal heirs of the author for them to exploit it commercially. So the work of author is life of the author plus 60 years is a copyright, which is generally accepted term. And once you register a copyright in India, it is all registered all over the world. Means because India is a signatory to Paris Convention, so whoever who is party to the Paris Convention, they all get the rights there. That is the thing. Now coming to trademarks. That's a trademark, basically nowadays people say I use a branded shoes, I use a branded shirt, I use a branded watch, I use a branded goggles, I use a branded stuff. Everything is branded. Today you talk about brand, even restaurants have become branded restaurants. There was even the biryanis, the Talapakattu biryani, they had went into a trademark war. Sri Krishna Sweets, they went into a trademark war. So all those things I'll be dealing when we come to that in detail. Just to give you, it's basically the logos or representative symbols used in trade and commerce. The moment I say Tata, what comes to your mind is they are into many fields, their reliability, it brings a goodwill of the brand. If I say Reliance, if I say Airtel, if I tell Vodafone, if I tell some company name or some brand logo, it reflects the brand recall will be there. So you recall the brand and the goodwill associated with it, whether it's a reliable brand, the quality of the brand, and the quality of the products which they bring in, how you identify that product with respect to other products that are available in the market, whether it is cheaper or it is expensive or whether it is a premium product, but it is a good high quality product. It's all understood by means of your branding or trademark, which is a common language. Now, trademarks have a perpetual protection. Perpetual protection, although you need to be renewing it periodically. Like the trademark granted first is only due for 10 years protection, which you have to subsequently after 10 years, you have to keep renewing it for continuously. So it can be renewed perpetually and you can own that. Generations can own that particular thing. Now, next IP we talk about is geographical indications. Geographical indications, or indications of origin of goods. So this also has a perpetual right. What happens in a geographical indication is, it started with the TRIPS agreement. I think Article 22 to 24 of TRIPS agreement. I will cover it when we come to the geographical indication, because all these IPs are covered in the articles of the TRIPS agreement, which India is a signatory. So because India is committed as a signatory in TRIPS agreement and later on signed the Paris Convention also in 1998. So that means 1995 and 98 we have signed two agreements. So to keeping in response to the commitments made to the international community, we have to upkeep and protect all these things, bring in laws. In fact, one interesting thing is, after signing this TRIPS agreement and Paris Convention, the geographical indication of Goods Act 1999 was formed. There was no GA Act at all prior to signing of the TRIPS agreement. So in India, although we have lots and lots of geographical indicators for origin of goods. See, some examples are, when I say Kanjipuram sari, so Kanjipuram sari is a GI tagged item, which is said. Similarly, Tirupati laddu, so that is also GI tagged item. Banaras sari, Calcutta rasgulla, these are food items. See how the foreigners have invented is, they said a champagne which is made only in the Champagne village and surrounding places of, say, I don't know, some kilometer distance, maybe 30, 40 kilometers within that Champagne village is the original champagne. Similarly, Scotch can be only made in Scotland. It cannot be made outside. You cannot make a Scotch in Chennai and say this is Scotch whiskey. Nobody will agree to it. So similarly, you cannot make a sari in Chennai and say it is a Kanjipuram silk. So the original, why geographical indications important? Because a particular art type or a particular handicraft, handiwork, or Mahabalipuram statues, the artwork, so the sculptures, that is also a geographical indication tag. So these are all specific to a place of origin. So the goods indicate, say Darjeeling tea. Say Darjeeling tea means it emerges from the mountains in the northeast and it comes from Darjeeling. Similarly, if you have a geographical indication for Nilgiris tea, it is from Nilgiris. So something like that. So Colombian coffee, it's from Colombia. So Colombia coffee means it has to come from Colombia. It cannot be made in some corner of Kenya or some corner of Thailand or Sri Lanka and then said it is Colombian coffee. That is wrong. There were some trade disputes which I'll be discussing when we go to the further thing. I'll show some case laws, infringement cases, and the process to prosecute these things as we move in the next series, actually. Okay. Now, coming to industrial designs. Industrial designs, what are industrial designs is aesthetic designs, which is up to 15 years. So what does the term of protection mean? A particular design, like the patent, see, patent and designs go together. In the industrial design, a Design Act 2000 was formed. A Design Act was enacted in 2000. In the year 2000, the Designs Act, what it talks about is a particular aesthetically developed design to house a product. Say, for example, it can be talked about a vodka bottle. The bottle had a very peculiar shape, and the company was selling it in that particular bottle for years together. So it had acquired a aesthetic design and it has acquired an industrial design status. So therefore, you can get a industrial design for any of the thing, but it should not be a mere box or mechanical thing. As you know, it should not be a mere mechanical design. Mere mechanical design cannot get a industrial design registration. That is most important. Also, any industrial design, you can get a design registration automatically. A copyright also subsists in the design, but there is a limitation to that. Like when I design a particular product and I don't make more than 50 pieces of it, it can be under the Designs Act. If I repeatedly make that same product design under more than 50 products, it cannot be registered under the Designs Act. So it has to be registered under the Copyrights Act. So those sections and other things I'll be talking, but there's an interrelation between the Designs Act and the copyright this thing. And what are the infringement of industrial design? What are the remedies, legal remedies available for us? How we have to take it to the court or the concerned authorities. But even before going to the court, we have the quasi-judicial authorities in the form of design controllers, patent and design controllers office in Calcutta. So we have to put up a petition before them. and how to file a petition, and then how to go about doing that. So all those things are there. We can discuss about that. Then the other form of thing is the trade secrets. Trade secrets are the confidential information which are perpetual in nature, but you have to protect it yourself. Here, the other IPs, the government is protecting you or the authority is protecting you for a limited period as mentioned by them in exchange for the information you provide of how to make it. For an invention, for example, I say I make a diesel car for selling in the Indian market with a good mileage. So I am parting with the design in the patent document. The document will be available in the web. It will be available in the patent office journal and registry. So it will be a registered patent. Now, after the period of 20 years, anybody else can start making that product. So that means the product goes into a public domain, so there is no problem. But whereas in trade secrets, it is maintained by you. What are trade secrets? Trade secrets are confidential information. Confidential information means sometimes it is, you can say the confidential information, you have three types of information. One is a public information, which is level one, where you know it has to be between, it is available in the public. Everybody knows that is a public information. Second is confidential information. And third is classified information. So confidential information is information which is exists within the company or the organization and which is within the knowledge of the people, and it is used for making the trade or commerce to run. For example, it could be your customer list. Supposing I'm making some product, I'm selling that product. I have 100 customers buying it from me. So that 100 customers name, contact list, address, everything is a trade secret for me. It cannot be divulged with. If I divulge that thing in a public domain, my competitor will take that information and then he will go into the market and sell his product rather than my product will stop selling. So that is information. So classified information only the top management will know of the company or the organization or the private, because we mainly talk about the private corporate sector when you talk about IP. You have to deal with only companies, whether it is a MSME, some small SME company, individual proprietary owner to a multinational company. The IPR we can provide for them. IPR services we can do. Then traditional knowledge. What is the traditional knowledge from age-old customs and practices? We would have seen in other parts of law that the traditional knowledge comes from the grandma's medicine. For example, if I get a wound, people will say, okay, take the turmeric powder, apply it with something, and then it will become all right. And most of them, this carom seeds. When I say carom seeds in English, are bishop seeds or bishop weeds, whatever you call it as. That's basically nothing but omam in Tamil, omam or ajwain in Hindi. So you all know that ajwain or omam is used for digestion. So whenever you find some problem in digestion, you can take either the water or just take some seeds, drink some little water with it. It's spicy, and you find that your stomach settles down in no time. It's a traditional knowledge. It was come from ages that you use this for this particular remedy. So anything from the traditional knowledge, you cannot go and patent it. So there were some cases where they wanted to patent turmeric in France, which was stopped by the Indian government. Even the basmati rice, they wanted to, it is a traditional knowledge-based growth, which was stopped. So these are the things which we have to take care and protect our traditional knowledge. The traditional knowledge exists within our communities as an age-old custom and practices, which most of the people, elderly people, will know that these are the medications or these are the things which we use for doing this. India does not allow any of the traditional knowledge-based, IPs to be registered in India. Use case, we call it as a use case. So if you say use this, if I say turmeric can be, if I know that turmeric can be used for wounds, healing of wounds, it has been used traditionally for healing of wounds, I cannot go and patent it. I cannot say neem oil is good for skin issues. I cannot go and patent it. These are the points which traditional India does not allow that kind of a patenting use. But whereas some other countries like Russia and other countries, they allow registration of use cases also. Some of them they use the traditional knowledge and try to make use of it as a patent. But if If those people, they come with a patent filing and patent office here in India, our patent office people, our examiners straight away refuse it. They say, sorry, we cannot register it because it's a use case. So traditional knowledge use case, even I appeared personally for a company from Russia for a medication, which is a use case medication from the bee wax, but unfortunately, the patent was not granted by our patent office. Okay, so these are the things. So trade secrets and trade knowledge also part of IP, but these are to be protected by yourself. So the other part of protection is patents, copyrights, trademarks, geographical indication, and industrial designs. And there is one more thing which I have not put in here. There is a plant varieties protection that I will come, and Biodiversity Act. So those things are separate. As I go forward in these slides, you will know about it. Am I running short of time, or should I proceed?
No, sir, you can go for another 10 to 15 minutes. No issues.
Okay, okay. So, as I said, the role of WIPO and the TRIPS agreement. So, what are the TRIPS agreement India has done? Standards. There should be minimum standards of IP protection. What do you mean by standards? Is there should be existing law, and then enforcement. Domestic laws, procedures, and remedies must be available to holders can effectively hold the enforcement right. And then the dispute settlement. If there is any dispute between the WTO members about the respective thing, they have to go as per the dispute settlement procedure, which is laid down in the WTO agreement. So for WIPO and TRIPS, both are binding on us because WIPO came out of the Paris Convention. TRIPS agreement came out of the WTO agreement. But both are binding on India because India is signatory to both. So I just go into this. The categories of industrial property, I think I already covered, but again, I will recover that once again, and then go into the all the IPs in one after other in a very short span. Paris Convention is one of the things which we discussed. The industrial property and copyright. So Paris Convention talks about the industrial products, and Berne Convention talks about the copyright and other related rights. Let's talk about the copyright and where does the copyright exist? Copyright exists in literary and artistic works, and literary and artistic work relates to author's work, like as I said, novel, poems, music, painting, sculptures, photographs, cinematographic films, and computer software. So one of the important thing is whatever you do, whether you buy a Windows operating system license, it's a copyrighted software, or your Adobe PDF is a copyrighted software. All the softwares are copyrighted software. There are several apps also which are coming, which also can be copyrighted. So when you do a copywriting registration for software, you'll have to send, there are certain formalities for it. So I'll be describing it elaborately during the copyright session, where how a software can be registered as a copyright and then obtained. See, actually speaking, as per the law, there is no necessity for a registration to take place. Either it is a copyright or a trademark. There is no mandatory requirement in law to take a registration for copyright or trademark. But it is always better to register it as a copyright because, as you know, the court will ask for an evidentiary value. Where is the evidentiary value coming in from? Only from the registration. Similarly, only when you have a property document, you can transfer the property or sell the property or lease the property. Similarly, only when you have a copyright registration or an extract of the copyright register, you have a copyright registration certificate, then only you can transfer the licensing arrangement to other people and other. To make the document legally valid, you need a IP registration, which is important. Otherwise, what happens when you go to the court, you have to establish the evidentiary value that this IP has been existent prior to that. See, nowadays you will be seeing a lot of cases in courts. Somebody says this story of mine, this movie story is my original. This director has stolen it, and then I stole in the story, he stolen it, and then he has taken the movie. Now, the problem comes because he has not registered his story prior to that. If he has registered the story, then that Section 53 of Copyright Act would come into picture, and you can file an infringement suit straight away, rather than going and then trying to give a proof, evidentiary proof. This was before I have done this and done that. It becomes difficult to add to the evidence. And related rights includes rights of performance, like music performance, producers of sound recording, and broadcast organization. So why you want to protect and rewarding creativity? Because it is to balance the interest of the creator and the community is the main objective of the copyright. So you have to balance the interest of the creator. The creator has to be rewarded. Then only he will create several more creations as he goes about. Now, second one is trademarks, including service marks. So the trademark, popularly known as brand name in a layman's language. So it may be a symbol or word or anything for that matter. Now the functions of trademark, now as I said, it identifies the goods or services. See, it can be for a goods or services. So you may be offering, for example, a laundering services, or you may be offering a delivery. Swiggy is a delivery service, or Zomato is a delivery service. So they are using a brand for their service mark, door delivery of products, like that. So there is a service mark and there is a product mark. The product mark may be a manufactured product mark, goods mark, and service mark is a service. So what does it indicate? It indicates or it guarantees unchanged quality of goods or quality of services. Similarly, it advertises the goods and services. The brand, as he said, it is a brand. It is used for advertisement of the goods and services, comes under that goodwill. So as I said, it creates an image, goodwill, and reputation for the goods or services offered by the person or the entity. So what is the purpose of trademark system? It's to actually provide physical origin of goods and service. The brand itself is a seal of authenticity. The moment you say, I am buying a Rado watch, or a Rolex watch, that brand itself is a seal, or Mercedes-Benz car. It is a seal of authenticity. It guarantees the identity of the origin of goods and services, and it stimulates further purchase. Also, for the benefit of the owner of the trademark, he can gain a higher price in the marketplace compared to similar products. If my brand has got a recognition and goodwill, so people will pay higher price for a premium brand compared to other brand. So you would have seen that by yourself, right from a small commodity to high-end commodity, the brand plays an important role. Also, you will have a loyalty, like somebody cigarette, with due respect, somebody smokes a particular brand of cigarette, somebody eats a particular brand of biscuits, a particular brand of this. They develop a loyalty and affiliation towards that, and they go and keep buying the same brand again and again. So that's the purpose of the trademark. So it may also make the consumer or the person to make a lifestyle or fashion statement. He may say that I am using a Mercedes-Benz car, I am using an Audi car, or something like that. It's a fashion statement. So you have a branded watch, branded shoes, branded shirts, branded, everything is branded, like something like today's world. It is more of importance. The branding becomes a very important thing. And most of the IPs, we find that lakhs and lakhs of brands are getting registered in India almost every day, every year. There is a quantum increase in that. Even as IPR attorneys, we find more work for trademarks, and the awareness of copyright is less. And of course, it is a strong trademark is a strong IP compared to copyright. So the litigation and other things are very good, and you have a strong position over that. Okay, so it makes the consumers to make an informed decisions about it. So I just quickly rush through patents. Now we covered about copyrights, trademark. Now we talk about the patents. As I said, patents are related to invention. Invention means a solution to a specific problem in the field of technology. It may be a product or process, like a process, like you can get, for example, you are making a medicine. Okay, the medicine, you can get a patent for the end product as a medicine, or the process of making that medicine also can be patented. See, earlier to the 1995 agreement, India did not have India's Patent Act 1970, but India did not have a product patent in India. We had only process patent. You can achieve the same product by doing it in a different method. Okay, process may be different, but the end product may be the same. So, but after the TRIPS agreement, they wanted that product patent should come in. So we had a 10 years period for developing countries. There was a 10 years period given from 1995 to 2005 to comply with the TRIPS agreement commitments by India. So the Patent Act underwent amendments in 2002 and 2005. Similarly, the Trademark Act got amendment. Similarly, the Copyright Act was amended in 1984 to take care of some of these authors' rights and other sound recording and other rights earlier. Then the new act of geographical indication also was enacted in 1999. Okay, so these are the commitments which India made, and we are protecting the IP of Indians as well as the other companies. So it is protecting in again it's the same thing. So as I said, considerable amount of time, effort, and money is spent on research. So when a new invention comes, it needs to be protected and taken forward. That is the reason why the patent law protects the scientific research, new technologies, and grant of exclusive privileges to own, use, or sell the method or product patent for a limited period. Limited period is only 20 years, and after that, the monopoly is gone. So the price for grant of monopoly is basically the disclosure of the inventions at the patent office, which after the expiry of the fixed period of monopoly passes into the public domain. So they will say sufficiency of disclosure. When a patent application is examined in the patent office, it is also will look into the sufficiency of disclosure, whether you have sufficiently disclosed the invention for a person known in that particular field. It could be a biotechnology patent, it could be an electronic patent, it could be a mechanical patent, it could be any other chemical patent. But the person in that particular trade should be able to redo that product or the process by seeing the disclosed forms, that sufficiency of disclosure by doing that. That's the meaning of the disclosure to the public. So it's an exclusive right. For example, I have said many things about the patent. Patents are telephone, radio, optical fiber, iPod, ballpoint pen, anything is a patent. Another thing is patent is territorial right. Patent is granted by the respective countries for the enforcement in their nation. So there is no such thing like world patent or universal patent. So that is where I said you cannot get a universal patent, but sitting in India, I can get a patent for my product in USA, either directly applying to the US office and getting it under the convention application, or under WIPO through the PCT, that is a patent cooperation treaty. Based on that also, I can apply through the Indian patent office and then get the patent for my product in any other country. There are certain things which stipulates that we cannot patent it in India. There is a wide section which talks about section 3, which talks about section 3 of the Patent Act 1970, which talks about the products, the subject matter of patent, and what cannot be patented, rather than what can be patented, because what can be patented will be a huge list. What cannot be patented, there is a list which is provided by that. So there we have to look into it and then say that these things cannot be subject matter of patents. So some of the things like naturally occurring substances like bacteria or animals or living organization are not patentable. I cannot clone a sheep and then say I want to patent that sheep. You cannot patent a living organism. But nevertheless, a genetically engineered bacteria is patentable because it is occurring manufacture or composition of matter, a product of human engineering. So when a human brain puts some work on that microorganism and modifies genetically modifies that particular bacteria and then makes it into a particular thing and then creates a vaccine out of it, and it is used for the public, it can be granted a patent. So I can deal with this later, but still just to rush through, in patents, the essential conditions for a patent application to be allowed or granted is it should be, as I said, patentable subject matter. It should not be coming under the list of non-patentable materials or product or process. Then it should have the new or novelty class, which means the invention must never have been made public anywhere before with the application for a patent. It's something new, totally new, or it's a novel thing in the world. That is how it should be. Not only India. Although territorial right is there, you cannot make some product and say, this is the first time I made it in India, where somebody must have already patented it. No, it should be a completely new or novelty. Second is an inventive step, involves an inventive or non-obvious step. That means even you can take if you do not have a novelty, you are taken upon an old bike and improvised on that. You have made the efficiency. You have done some, not mere workshop improvement. What I mean by workshop improvement is, I just take a fan and attach a light underneath, and the fan runs, the light in the room also runs. I don't want that kind of a thing. It's basically attachment of two devices together. That is called as a workshop involvement, inventive step. That is not the thing. It should be a step which makes it to happen. So let's go into industrial designs. Design also talks about shape, configuration, pattern, ornament, etc. We will discuss about it as we go about it. I told you about a case where Gorbachev Vodka GV versus John Distillers Limited. The shape of the bottle, the manufacturer will be able to establish that he has a reputation, goodwill, and distinct appearance of the article itself would furnish a cause for action for passing on. This is another IP, which is known as Semiconductor Integrated Circuits Design Layout. This act came into SICLD Act came into effect in year 2000. This protects the chip making process, the semiconductor chips in the electronic industry. Geographical indications, I talked about it. I talked about the Indian examples, Madurai Malli, Kanchipuram sarees, Calcutta seagulls, Mahabalipuram stone sculptures, Aran Mula mirror from Kerala. These are the things. Foreign things may be scotch, tequila, cognac, champagne, vodka, extra foodstuffs, as well as handicrafts. Any other thing can be made as a geography. It is an origin. It indicates this comes from this particular place. This is GIGA Act, Geographical Indication of Goods Act, 1999. Then there is a Plant Varieties Protection Act, which talks about biotechnology related patents are always conflict area. You cannot go and say that, which is India is an agrarian economy, we cannot give a patent protection for plant varieties because India has opted for a sui generis legislation. Sui generis legislation means these are the same gene. For example, you see capsicum in the market, you have a green capsicum, you have a red capsicum, and you have a yellow capsicum. But you cannot give a grant a patent for green, red capsicum and yellow capsicum, something similar to this. It is all of the same gene. It's all sui generis. It's all same category, same gene. It is of one of a kind. All are capsicum. It comes under the category of one of a kind, which is capsicum. That's what. It's one kind. Whether it is color-wise it is different, this wise it is different, this all comes under one category. So India does not allow this patent this thing. So we have a protection act rather than it is called as Plant Variety Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers Act 2001. This is because in USA they give everything right from any agriculture stuff they keep giving patents under the sun. So which India wanted to protect it particular plant varieties, so that is why it is put. And there is a Biodiversity Act also, which goes hand in hand with this particular thing. So now I summarize all these things. Now I have covered copyright. Now I have not gone deep into that. I have just given you the concepts. I hope I have gone through the concepts in an understandable way. So we have copyright, discuss about copyright, what all the subject matters in which copyright subsists. Then we have discussed about trademark, we discussed about patents, then we discussed about designs, then semiconductor integrated circuit layout designs, geographical indication, and plant variety protection. All these IPs are covered by Indian acts, Copyright Act, Trademark Act, Patent Act, Design Act, SICD Act, GIGA Act 1999, Plant Varieties Protection Act 2009. So we will be taking up each act with case laws and how to go about prosecuting it practically, like how to register it and how to protect it in the courts in the subsequent series. This is only an introductory series, as I mentioned earlier. So as we discussed, we also discussed about undisclosed information, including trade secrets, which includes your customer data, your secret formulation, etc. There are some utility model patents and control of anti-competitive practices. What we talk about anti-competitive practices, you should have a healthy competition in place and not anti-competitive practices. See, when I have a patent, you should allow me to exploit that. You should not bring it and take it to say in India, we have a CCI, which is Competition Commission of India. Earlier it was known as MRTP, Monopolies and Restrictive Practices Act. They don't want to allow one monopoly. So that became Competition Commission of India. And we have a Competition Commission Act also. So which says that unethical competition should be avoided. So if you look at the IP laws and the competition laws, both are confronting each other. So the anti-competitive practice, one says you should not be monopoly, but IP law says you should give monopoly for a restricted period of time. So where do you meet? Okay. So the Indian law should be balanced. Where there is a restriction to be done in the Competition Act, it has to be done. Where in case the protection to be given, national treatment given, as per the commitment made in international conventions and agreements, so we have to protect it. That is what government has to do, the control of anti-competitive practices.